two, one. Fragments of silicon. Just another piece in the falling block puzzle we call life.
Eventually we're going to craft a smooth jazz version of that theme to go with the Tuesday morning motif. Anyway, so welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon, the European Interviews. If we're broadcasting on a Tuesday morning, it means we have a guest from the old country. Right, and joining us this week is Dan Sheridan, the communication manager of a company called nDreams VR.
Hello.
Hello. How are you doing today?
Yeah, not too bad. It's Tuesday. We just had a lovely 3-day weekend with a bank holiday, and yeah, the week has started today.
Indeed. Same thing over here. We had our Memorial Day. Yeah. Anyway, so starting off, we like to learn about the person behind the game, behind the studio, behind the whole shebang. And we like to get started by asking, what got you interested in video games in the first place?
I think, growing up with video games, I'm 37 years old now, so I grew up with Commodore and Spectrum, and the days when video games were on cassettes, and I was always interested and intrigued on how they're actually made. And you go to college as you do, and you do a degree or qualification, and then you never think that you'll make it into the video games industry. And I just, for myself, I got into games because I'm passionate about games, and it's so great to be able to finally do a job that is relevant to my interests, as well as playing the games and being close to them. So in terms of my career, I've been in entertainment for about 17 years. I worked in the music industry, the film industry, and for the past 11 years I've been focused on video games. So I spent about 8 of those years working at Electronic Arts, and worked on some of the top franchises there, like FIFA, Sims, Battlefield, Need for Speed, and then moved over to work for Sega, working on the likes of Sonic the Hedgehog, Dawn of War, Company of Heroes, FIFA Manager, Football Manager, and in the past 3-4 months, I joined nDreams. Reason I joined nDreams is because I'm really passionate about new technology, and VR seems to be the thing that everyone's talking about at the moment, particularly with fully immersive games experiences. And nDreams have got quite a history, and one of the first developers in the UK to actually start publishing titles. So for me, it was a great opportunity and a great moment to be at the forefront of that cutting edge technology. So that's what video games is for me. I'm very passionate about playing them, and my roots are in video games from when I grew up, and it's just it's great to finally be doing a job that it's your passion as well. So it doesn't feel like work, but it is work. It's cool.
Mm-hmm. I think we can relate on this show, since this is our work, and oftentimes it doesn't feel like work, but it's still work. But there's a lot of history there.
Yeah, for me, for sure.
Yeah. Now, in terms of working at EA and Sega, I'm assuming that was at various UK branches.
Yeah, so for EA, I worked for the UK Ireland and Nordics branch. I was actually based in two of the offices. They had an office based in Chertsey in the UK where they used to develop the Harry Potter titles. They had a UK studio and developed those titles. And then we moved to a place called Guildford, which was the home of the Criterion studio. Who developed Burnout and then went on to do Need for Speed, and then most recently I think they've done the Star Wars Battlefront VR experience, which is probably one of my personal favourite VR experiences that's out there. And then for Sega, I was headquartered at the European office for Sega, and we pretty much dealt with the western side of Sega's operation. And there was a few American offices, but they focused predominantly on the Atlas titles and Sonic the Hedgehog.
Wow, that's quite a resume.
Yeah, it was funny because the other week I was doing a little bit of a presentation and a background to some of the folks here at nDreams on my career, and it's weird when you put up all of the titles that you've worked on onto a deck and into a presentation, and you look at it and think, wow, that's quite something right there. So I'm quite fortunate to have worked at some great places and with some great people and on some amazing video games.
No doubt, no doubt. Now, how does working at nDreams compare to working at one of these big publishers?
Working at nDreams is great because a lot of the guys that I work alongside in the studio, they all have backgrounds at other publishers and other developers. We've got a development team here of about 50 or so, and some of the guys here have worked at Criterion, they've worked at Lionhead, they've worked at Sony London Studios. Our founder and CEO, Patrick, he used to be the creative director at Eidos and worked at Codemasters as well before he set up nDreams. So it's really, for me, it's really great to be working for a company that has a lot of industry veterans surrounding you and supporting you, because everyone kind of, gets what we're doing. We're creating the most amazing VR experiences that we can do, and it's just great to be surrounded by such a intelligent bunch of people.
Definitely impressive cross-section of UK talent from what I'm getting.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's come from, like I say, lots of names there and lots of experience. And then we have quite a cool recruitment program as well. We work with graduates coming through and we do competitions. So quite recently we did a Grads in Games competition. And the winner of that competition, a VFX artist, actually has got a contract with the company. So, we do, we work with some of the best in the industry, but we're also looking out for new talent as well.
And how many people work at nDreams currently?
There's about, I'd say, 55 maybe at the moment. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but yeah, I think it's about 55. Predominantly, that number is developers, and then we've got a core team of about 6 in our publishing team, myself included.
That's actually quite a few people. Like, probably one of the larger developers / publishers we've had on a program, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, we like to think that we're the UK's largest independent publisher and developer of VR experiences, particularly in the UK.
And now I'm seeing that the company was founded in 2006. So I suppose the question beckons, exactly at what point did the studio turn towards VR?
That didn't sound good.
Okay, we kind of dropped there. Hello?
The joys of live broadcasting?
Yeah.
Hello, is everybody here?
I'm back. I'm back
Yay.
from the future. I'm back from the future.
Yeah, that was Ogre and then Dan very quickly in succession, and I don't know why.
Yeah, I'm like, sorry about that, folks. Skype just dropped us. I'm like, you know, the live broadcasting, it's just kind of part of the territory. Anyway, getting back on track here. Anyway, I see that the studio was founded in 2006, but that's quite a while ago. And what did nDreams do back in the day before the focus on VR?
Originally, nDreams was developing experiences for the PlayStation Home. They developed a lot of alternate reality games. One was called Zai, which had been played by, I think it's been played by about 650,000 people. And they went on to be quite a prolific developer of mini games on the PlayStation Home system. Up until the end of when the PlayStation Home service actually ceased, and it was about that time in around 2013 when VR seemed like they had their, I guess, eureka moment where it's like, VR is the place where we should be going, where we should be investing. So it started out with creating tech demos on the Oculus Rift, and they developed this quite cool demo called skydiving, which is like free falling whilst you're wearing a VR headset and trying to miss obstacles. Quite a very visceral experience at the time.
No doubt. Probably still a visceral experience today.
I think it was one of the most downloaded demos available on the Oculus Rift back then. So yeah, they're definitely onto something. And from there, the studio's just grown from strength to strength. Released 2 titles. The Assembly, which is a story-led adventure game, which is available on Oculus, HTC Vive, and PSVR. And then on Samsung Gear VR, there's quite a few titles that the guys have released. There's one called Gunner and Perfect Beach, which is more of a relaxation experience. You just want to chill out at the end of the day and listen to some tunes and chill on a beach. You can do that. And then from Perfect Beach, another title was born called Perfect, which enables you to visit 3 locations. There's like a wilderness one, a Northern Lights experience, and then a beach scene. And then from within those areas, you can teleport to different areas, and the world interacts with you, and you're completely immersed. I mean, we've been demoing quite recently Perfect at a video game show, and we saw quite a lot of people come through. Maybe about 86% of the people that came through hadn't experienced VR, and Perfect's such a great, I guess, experience title to have your first taster of VR, because you just instantly forget where you are and what you're doing, and the world around you interacts with you. Like particularly if you have, say, the Oculus Rift or the Vive, you can hold your hands out with the controllers, and butterflies will land on your hand, and as you move your hands, they just like flick off and fly away. And it's lots of subtle little things, but it just adds to the experience, which is really cool.
So it's kind of a beach relaxing simulator thing.
Yeah, you could say that, a perfect beach simulator of sorts. And there's the other locations I mentioned as well, like the Northern Lights. There's like a nighttime version, and it's a camping scene, and you can look up and you can light sticks and set them on fire and throw them, and throw snowballs around. And I've been told, I've never actually seen the Northern Lights in person before, but I've been told that the Perfect experience is quite close to the aurora that you can see in the sky.
And is this game still in development, or has it been released?
Perfect is available now, and the assembly is out now as well.
I see. Right. Let's see. Quite a bit to unpack here. Well, first of all, in terms of headsets, is there any particular preference that nDreams has? You know, say the Oculus or the Vive or anything of that nature.
At the minute, we try and develop for all platforms where possible, because each platform has their own unique strengths. So we like to, as much as possible, make sure our games are available on Vive, Oculus Rift, and PSVR. And then when we do mobile titles, we make sure they're available on Samsung Gear VR. We also released a title called Danger Goat on the Google Daydream platform as well.
I'm not familiar with the Daydream platform, gotta say. Is that like Google Cardboard?
Yeah, that's Google's platform.
Yes. So they released their Pixel phone, and the Daydream is like their VR platform for that particular device and future devices.
I see. Like, so what's your personal assessment about VR in the year of 2017? You know, has it lived up to the initial hype, or do you think it still has a ways to go?
I think VR is going to be quite successful in terms of the technology. I mean, if you look at other tech launches over the last decade or so, it can be quite a slow burner, and people need to get used to the technology. Prices need to come down, and the tech needs to improve. But we're seeing, lots of cool things happening at the moment, and I think it's an interesting time when you see a lot of devices out there, and particularly with the mobile devices as well. It becomes quite accessible to people. And I've just come back recently from a show at MCM Comic Con in London, and there's quite a lot of VR cafes and arcades opening up. So if you can't, get a VR headset yourself, or you've not got the chance to try one, there's places where you can go and get access to the hardware and have the experience.
Yes, I've heard about these things, like VR arcades. I'm not sure how much of a thing they are yet, but I've certainly heard about companies bringing VRs to like public displays, so people can actually try them out. Because I'd say one of the things that is holding VR back is just the amount of not just the amount of stuff you need, but the prices.
Yeah.
I mean, like, at least on the high-end stuff, I mean, the mobiles is pretty affordable, but also pretty limited in its scope.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, I think I'd say to that, like the current headsets are quite pioneering, maybe first generation pieces of tech, but then you can kind of like compare the current price point with technologies like TVs or cars or even smartphones when they first come out. I would kind of say VR headsets comparable in price maybe to like a large TV, but at the minute it's great news that we're seeing hardware costs come down, and maybe in the future the quality and the experience can only really improve. And I don't think it's too far off until most people can be able to afford a VR headset which suits them and suits their needs.
perhaps, it's like I couldn't hazard a guess as to say when VR headset prices would start to fall. I mean, it could take. It could be soon. It could be 5 years. It all depends on how refined it all gets. But I'm curious to see if VR is going to be able to conquer some of its other challenges. Like the big one's motion. Like one of the big one of the big problems with VR right now is motion sickness.
Yeah, like I tried a Oculus at Best Buy once, and it made me sick to my stomach.
And it's also, and this is something that is actually affecting like gameplay developments. Um, it's why we don't have a lot of free movement in VR titles
Mm.
currently.
Yeah, that's one of the things that'll trigger motion sickness in people that would be okay with it otherwise, which still isn't everyone.
And I do wonder if, like how this hurdle will be surmounted, in ways other than like being on and so on and so forth. I mean, as a developer and publisher of VR games, what's your perspective on, you know, moving past experiences and into more full-fledged gameplay motifs?
Yeah, so just on that point, I mean, with one of our previous titles, The Assembly, we actually gave the player a few ways to play. You could have free movement if you're not affected by motion sickness. You can move around and look around, or we have almost like a pivot turn control system where you pivot and then you move, and you pivot and you move, and that seems to counter some of the issues that people face. Or there is a almost like a guide, like a point and click guide, so you could point with like a ghost of a character and point them into an area and then kind of jump to those areas, and that kind of countered some of the issues that people were facing. With our most recent title, which I think you mentioned at the beginning of the show, Bloody Zombies, it's the camera in the VR is third person. It actually kind of moves quite slowly in a panning shot, and we're quite confident that it works very naturally in VR. I mean, we've not had any experience or encountered any issues with motion sickness with this particular title. And more recently, at the weekend, as I just mentioned earlier, we were at MCM Comic Con, and quite a lot of people coming through were, really enjoying this particular camera angle. So I think, developers need to be mindful of, how they develop the games and what cameras they use, and what works best for their game, and make sure they test it and they give the players options.
Yeah, I can see that. Uh, anything to mitigate the damage, so to speak. Because, like, I do think if there's anything that might break VR, it's the motion sickness issue. Because tech prices can fall, but if the audience literally can't handle the experience, well, they're not going to be able to, get into VR, literally. But anyway, moving forward, so is there any major differences between like the HTC Vive, the Oculus Rift, and the PlayStation VR from a development perspective?
So, as I mentioned earlier, they all have their unique strengths, and we try our best to, make sure we give the best possible experience to the player on each of the platforms.
I guess rephrased another way, is there any like differences that you have to keep in mind? Say if you're developing for the PlayStation VR that doesn't exist on, say, the Oculus Rift or anything like that, or are they all pretty uniform?
I would say they're all uniform in a way. The PC. The piece like Steam works very differently with the VR headsets. To say how PSVR works, is all connected to the PlayStation system. So you've got as any other game would be developed, you've got to take into account the actual systems and just making sure that your game is going to run as well as it can and it's optimized for those systems. But like I said before, they've all got their own unique strengths, and we just try and make the best possible experience for each of them as best we can.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Right. So before we continue, we have a trailer of the recently announced Bloody Zombies to play. If might be a second for our stream operator to line everything up.
I'm ready to go now.
All right. So I suppose you can proceed with the trailer.
All right.
Come on, in. Come on. How's this taste?
Painting the town red.
Made a right mess.
All right. So I got to say, one of the things that really attracted me to this title is it's such a strange fit for VR devices. That is to say, I don't see a lot of third-person games being developed for VR, let alone third-person brawlers. So I suppose my question is, what prompted you, or what prompted the developer to make a third-person brawler for virtual reality?
Yep. So I mean, I think there's a common misconception at the minute that any game in VR needs to be a first-person game, and we're taking the approach that it doesn't have to be that. We've taken a genre, the brawler genre, and which is traditionally like a side-scrolling style of game, and trying to challenge what the medium can do and what the medium can support. So with Bloody Zombies as the VR as the VR player, you can see the entire level. You almost get like a diorama. You get a diorama view. Almost like you're looking down at a doll's house. You can look down into the action, you can look around, you can provide tactical support to your fellow players. Is there someone taking something out?
You were saying?
Yeah, so hello. So yeah, you can provide tactical support to your friends that you're playing with. For example, in the trailer, you might have seen this big winning wheel spinning death machine coming down to obliterate. When you're playing in 2D, you might not necessarily, or traditional ways of playing, you might not see that. So the VR player can see these things. They can see traps. And can warn the players. The other cool thing about this game is, what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring both VR and non-VR players together. There's a lot of games out there that focus on multiplayer, but we see that people have difficulty finding other people to play with, or you'll be doing a solo VR experience at home, but you want to show your friend what the game is that you're playing. With this game, you can play in VR and your character has like a little VR headset on, and then your friends, up to maybe 3 other friends on the couch, can play with you, and they get to see the 2D version on the screen, but also on the PC, just through one simple key press. You just press V, and you can see what the VR player sees as well if you want to get a look at that. And then the game's going to support online as well. So if you're go online and your friend's got a VR headset and they go home, you can both play together, and you can play with, say, 2 VR players and 2 non-VR players in the same game. So it's, we're trying to do a lot of cool things with this game that's not really been seen before in other VR games.
Yeah, I can definitely sense that. Given, like I said, I've never heard of a game quite like this in VR. I mean, certainly in traditional gaming, this, brawlers are quite common. But like I said, I think this is the first VR brawler I've ever seen. So
Yeah, I mean, the guys who developed the game, Paupering Games, are based in a place called Chester in the UK, and they're very much brawler fans. They've been inspired by the likes of Streets of Rage and Final Fight, and they really wanted to make, as their first game, they really wanted to make a brawler game. That's what they're passionate about, and they're really interested with VR, and that's one of the reasons why we're publishing this game, because they were passionate about VR as much as we're passionate about developing and publishing VR titles. So it was just a great fit for us to be working with those guys.
And so speaking on the zombie motif, any concerns about that, given, there are a lot of zombie games out there?
Yeah, so, with zombies, particularly in this game, you don't tend to see zombies appear in brawlers, and the guys wanted to create an enemy within the game that they could have fun with, that they could show different elements, show different variations, and zombies enable you to do that. So you might have seen in the trailer, there were some of the bosses, or one boss, one had it was a big brutish guy with another zombie on its shoulder. There's lots of things that the guys can do as well with when they have the freeform combat, when they're fighting the enemies, the zombies explode into lots of different pieces, and it adds variation to the game as well, particularly in this genre, rather than fighting against traditional brawler enemies like the other people or giant robots or something. We just wanted to do something a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I'm guessing this game is meant for a controller, as opposed to, say, the touch controllers, motion controllers.
Yeah. So yeah, this game has been developed to use with a gamepad or I think you can actually use a keyboard as well for this. Touch controllers didn't really work for this style of game because of the amount of combinations, and the freeform combat just didn't actually work. The advanced and precise combos didn't really suit the motion controller functionality.
Makes sense. This is definitely a gameplay style that benefits from a traditional controller, for my estimation. That was always one of the downsides of motion gaming, even before VR, is when it got crowbarred into games that really didn't need it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at you, Metal Slug Anthology on the Wii. No, I did not like shaking for grenades. Anyway, So could you potentially have 4 VR players play this, or is it just up to 2 helmets?
So if you're playing online, you can play with. So you can play in VR, and you can play with 3 friends in VR as well.
Neat. Okay, and how far along is the game at this point?
We haven't announced the release date yet, but what I can tell you is it is going to release 2017.
Okay, so it's fairly far along. And
Yeah, we in terms of development, I mean, the guys have been working on it for about, in terms of initial concept to now, they've been working on it for about a year and a half. So they put a lot of time and effort into making it to be the best brawler that it can be, but also, you know, the best brawler in VR and the best, you know, the game that will bring VR and non-VR players together in the same game. I mean, that's one of the core things we're trying to achieve with this. And actually, I'll just add to that point. That being said, the game is also going to be available on PS4, Xbox One, and PC, and there's no requirement there for you to have VR on those systems if you don't have them.
Yeah, I don't think anyone here has a VR headset yet, because once again, they're kind of expensive. You know.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I'm in the worried about motion sickness and or severe headaches cohort.
Indeed. Anyway, so how long of a game is this? Like, can you go through it through a couple of hours?
The game is currently still in development, so we've not actually finalized all of the levels and the length of the game at this stage. But we'll be offering more details on that as the campaign moves along. We're going to be heading over to E3 with this title and hope to unveil a bit more there.
Are you personally heading over to E3 this year, or?
Yeah, I'll be there all week.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nobody here is going to E3 this year. Like
Not local.
Yeah, it's like it's honestly hard for us to go to any conventions or anything like that because they're all in like California and we're on the other side of the country. So.
One of these years, I'm going to try to go to PAX East.
I went to PAX East not last year, the year before with Total War Warhammer when I worked at Sega, and I love that show. It was really good to see how shows are done on the east side.
I think Naka went to PAX East a few years ago and rather enjoyed it, although he got sick.
Yeah, I was about to say, and then Kong Plague happened.
Yeah, Con Plague happens to the best of us sometimes.
Yeah. And then Ogre got sick.
It happens to everyone.
Yes.
Unless you walk in with a hazmat suit and then you get looked at funny.
You need to create a game where you have a character in hazmat suits, and then it doesn't look so funny.
Maybe that could be a costume option in this game, or. Now, what is the story of Bloody Zombies? Like, is there a plot, or is it just smash, zombie, smash?
Yeah, so we've worked with a company called Tailspinner, and they've developed a story for Bloody Zombies. So, you know, in brief, London's been lost to an undead plague. It's been overrun by hordes of these mutated zombies, and I guess the world's or London's last hope rests in the united fists of these four lone misfit outcast type characters that you see on the screen in the trailer. You know, and they must work. You know, it's a team game. It's a co-op game. They need to, you know, work together with their brutal combat skills, survive in the new world, and form a bit of a fragile alliance, if you will, to smash, slash, and fight their way through the undead horde and try and save what's left of the city of London. We are going to be revealing more details on the story. Most probably, our next reveal will be at E3, and can't wait to share all of that lovely detail with you then.
Now, can you play this game single player, or will, if you don't have three other people, will just they be controlled by AI?
So yeah, you can play the game single player. So we've got 4 characters to choose from. We've got Mick, the Brick. We've got a character called Ray, who's a lady character. We've got Eddie, and we've got a bare knuckle fighter called Teller, and you can choose one of the 4 characters to play, and you can play on your own. The game's balanced. For one player, it's balanced if you want to play with a friend or if you want to play with up to 4 people in total.
And is this game procedurally generated, or is it, are the levels actually being designed?
All of the levels are being designed at Paw Print Games. There's a lead game designer, a guy called Steve Knapman, and he's responsible for designing all of the epic levels. We've shown one of the levels off, which is the London setting, where the game's based in and around London. So you might recognise Big Ben, you might recognise Tower Bridge, you might recognise Piccadilly Circus. The game's kind of inspired by London. It's not exact street by street London, but it's to give you a sense of the inspiration behind the game there.
Kind of reminds me of Zombie U in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, we're taking inspiration from, culture and like TV culture, like Shaun of the Dead, and the VO's got a very much lock, stock, and 2 smoking barrels type of Cockney slang, and quite gritty in the tone. So there's humour elements. There's what a brawler fan would want there. There's a lot of grit there as well. And we think being having the set in the game in London is quite iconic as well, because everyone kind of knows London, or we hope they do.
Certainly the landmarks, like at the very least, like. Anyway, can you go into any details about the modes? Like, is it just going to be campaign, or there's going to be other modes in the game?
So there's the campaign, which you play co-op, and at the moment all the other modes are still being worked on, so I can't really go into much detail about what they are at this time.
I figured, but I'm guessing there are going to be more than just the story mode, then.
It's one of those you'll have to wait and see.
Fair enough. Let's see. Any details on the pricing currently?
So at the moment, we're trying to focus all our efforts on getting the game finished. So we're not really in a position to talking about the price at the minute. But what I can tell you is it's not going to be like a AAA game. You're going to look in more of your indie price point for this particular game.
Okay, I think I can generally guess what that's going to be. Is the developer working on all versions of the game simultaneously, or are they or is there like a lead platform, and is somebody else handling the other versions?
No, Paw Print Games are working on all versions of the game. So they're working on the Vive version, Oculus, PlayStation VR, PC, standalone, Xbox One, and PS4 version of the game.
That's a lot of platforms.
Yeah, it is quite an epic task, and you just add the VR to the mix as well. And but yeah, we've got a great team in Paw Print Games, and they're great to work with, a great partner, and we can't wait to show more off of the game. Actually, when we're out at E3, we're going to have Steve Kraft, one of the co-founders of the team, there as well. So he'll be talking to people and unveiling more details on the game.
Good to hear. I do. I suppose if I had a question for him, is how are they handling the juggling of 6 versions of the Bloody Zombies here? That's quite a lot for one development studio.
Yeah, well, in terms of nDreams as well, we're a publisher and we're a developer ourselves. There are areas in the development where we are lending a hand. So we're doing the QA for the guys. We've added one of our audio guys, a guy called Matt Simmons. He's worked on games like Silent Hill before and done audio there, and he's done some of the audio in this game. We've given them support in terms of art and game design direction. So we're helping. It's not like they're just solo developing the game. We're kind of co-developing and publishing the game.
I see. Oh, I mean, it certainly sounds like a very unique experiment in the VR field. So, shifting beyond Bloody Zombies, are there any projects that are currently in development that you can talk about, or are they still in the incubation period?
I can't talk about any of the games that are in development, but we do have 5 titles currently in development at the moment, and that's all I can say on that at the moment.
Duly noted. And finally, you're heavily invested in VR, but have you ever glanced over at augmented reality and looked into that technology?
It definitely is on our radar at the moment, and we are very excited about AR as well as VR. But at the moment, our focus is on the publishing of Bloody Zombies and the games that we have currently in development, which I can't go into detail.
Fair enough. All right. I'll see if my colleagues have any additional questions before we conclude today.
I'm good.
I think I've had most of my questions answered.
You said most.
Well, most of the stuff is stuff that he said he couldn't answer yet.
Fair enough. All right.
Like about gameplay modes and stuff.
Okay. Well, it looks like we're about done here. So I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your schedule, Dan, and joining us. And
No worries.
telling us about Bloody Zombies. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing more of this game, and hopefully it's successful in its mission statement and bringing VR and non-VR players together.
I'm interested to see how third-party stuff, how the third person, stuff goes, because I think that actually might help with some of the issues with VR. Is not always being tied to pretending you're inside the head of something that doesn't fully exist in game.
That's a fair assessment, I think.
Yeah. Just to let you guys know as well, we also have a game overview video on YouTube, which our community manager Jenny put together. Goes into a bit more detail on VR and some of the things you will encounter in Bloody Zombies. So I definitely suggest you check that out as well.
Okay. Probably after broadcast and all that stuff. Anyway. And beyond that, certainly looking forward to seeing what you do next, and maybe we'll have you back on the program when you're able to talk about the 5 projects that can't be talked about at this point.
Yeah, I'd love to come back and talk to you guys more. It's been great. Thank you.
No problem. So that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. Be sure to join us tomorrow at our regular time, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. We're going to have, this is one of those names that I might mispronounce, so bear with me. We're going to be having Joe Tringali of Digital Continue. They're a new outfit out of New York City. Currently, they're working on porting Lock's Quest, a DS SRPG that was released back in 2008 to the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and the PC. And indeed, I think that port is actually releasing today. Not that you'd notice. But that's a tale for tomorrow. So, before we go, Petty Fan, what is going on MSP?
MSP tomorrow, we have Jackie Woolnhouse of Between Two Failures. I'm sorry if I
Right.
mispronounced that last name.
Yeah. It's always a tricky proposition when you haven't heard their names. So it's like, hope we get it right. Anyway, until tomorrow, I wish you all good gaming.
Good game.